Hello, everyone, and welcome to Adobe Live. I'm your host, Kieran Lewis, freelance graphic designer based in London. And today we've got a real treat. We have the wonderful YouTuber, course creator, and graphic designer, Lisa Siefert. Lisa, how are you doing?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to get cracking today to show our Adobe audience what we're working with. Just a few things for the Adobe chat. If you've missed the last set of challenges, we've got you covered. It's all good. Check out Photoshop Daily Creative Challenge with the awesome Voodoo Val every weekday at 9 a.m. Pacific. And as always, if you're viewing on YouTube, pop over to Behance, and that way we can actually read your comments and I can share them directly with Lisa while she's designing. Lisa, how's your day been today? How have you been?
Good. I mean, it's still like the beginning of the day here. It's noon, so I haven't even had lunch yet. I just finished breakfast. It was a late morning.
It's still early. I keep forgetting the sort of time difference. I mean, I'm based in London, so it's pretty late over here, but we're in a good place. We're in a good place. And I can see as well, we've got quite a few people in the chat, which is great. We've got hello to Rick, Steve, Matt, obviously got Voodoo, keeping things safe for us, Viola, and yeah, a few more people. So welcome. Good to see you guys. And like I said, obviously, drop in your comments on Behance and we can share them directly with Lisa as we go along. But Lisa, for those who've just tuned in and don't know who you are, would you like to give us a bit of an insight into your world and who you are and what you'll be working on today?
Sure. I am a self-taught graphic designer. I just happened to stumble upon Adobe InDesign because I wanted to make planners. And to be honest, I tried Excel and I tried Microsoft Word and all those other awful programs that weren't a fit. And then that's how I stumbled on InDesign. And I just found that I really like creating planners, and that was the best tool. So nice. That's kind of it. Yeah. But I also, go on.
No, go for it. No, go for it.
Oh, I was going to say, I'm also an author. So I actually spend a lot of time writing books.
Awesome. Are you working on anything at the moment now? Is it in the process? Or?
Yeah, I work on, I write cozy mysteries about my cat. So they're like little kitty cupcake cat. I don't know if cozy mysteries are really in the UK, but they're
I feel like you can make it popular. Well, maybe this could be the time on Adobe Live we can promote it, plug it if we're doing like anything cat related. It'd be good to know if anyone in the chat are any cat lovers or any people with their own cats, drop them in. I feel like that could be a nice little introduction into our cat/Adobe Live. And also, again, what are we working on today? It'd be good to have an insight into what you'd be working on today for those who've tuned in, and we can have a flavor what you'd be working on.
Sure. I noticed a lot of people on this channel are really great at working with clients. I am not. I'm more of like a rebel. I'm like, I just want to make what I want to make. And so these are all the things that I make. I make templates so that you can just take them and edit them and use them yourself. Because I think it's tough staring at a blank page, whether you're writing a book or you're taking a plan or you're designing something. I feel like it's always better to like fix something or edit something someone else started. So we have a ton of dated planners inside of here. So this is kind of like my style and the different things that I make. Today, though, we're actually going to make a digital planner. So we have specialty planners, we have pop-up shops, but we're going to make a planner for the iPad.
Exciting.
Which I guess I should say tablet, right? Because it'll work on a non-Apple product.
No, amazing. I imagine as well, for those in the chat, if for anyone, I imagine during this whole period of obviously being in lockdown and whatnot, planning and trying to get into that state of just being more organized. I know I'm always planning. It'd be good to know if you guys obviously are planning anything in particular, or if you're finding, what quite useful for tools for planning as well. Put in the chat, would love to hear it. And actually just putting it out there as well, I can see, at least we've got quite a lot of people from different parts of the world, which is awesome. We've got Robert from Sweden, so he's tuned in. And again, put in where you're from. It'd be good to kind of where you tuned in from, and welcome as always.
Great. Yeah, and so I told everyone that I was coming on here, and I was like, "Oh, Kieran is so great. He's from the UK." They're like, "Oh, it'll be like an Adobe version of Ted Lasso." I was like, maybe, because all of my friends are watching that show.
Oh, brilliant. No, we've set the trend. I feel like it's awesome when you have, like, again, with Adobe Live, because we've got creators all over the world, right? And we're connecting, and you got things like Behance. But yeah, you're US, I'm London. It's all good. And everyone in the chat got Armucci, if I'm on that, Murchie, hope I'm saying that correctly, from Toronto, Canada. We've got Greg from South Dakota. Again, yeah, this is awesome. all next to the woods. So we've got Bertus from South Africa. So that's even and Gareth from Scotland. So you got a lot of people, Lisa. It's all good. Tune in for your live. So it's a good time.
I will say I do gravitate towards more what some people call girly colors. Today I'm going to try to use a more neutral blue, which I think appeals to both men and women. And also blue is, I've always heard that like if you're colorblind, blue is like one color that you can still see very vibrantly.
Good shout.
So hopefully I clearly.
What is your favorite color? Just I mean, we've got to get that in there straight away in terms of we got a favorite
it's definitely
color
pink.
Okay.
Pink and I guess with a little blue mixed in too.
That's all good. And again, I mean, I'm probably more of an orange kind of guy. I feel like it changes depending on the mood, right? And the vibe, and I guess what you're working on as well, colors and the feelings that it comes with. But it's all good. Like a pink calendar.
Pink. Are you ever using pink as your first go-to color?
Do you know what? I wouldn't say no. I'm not one of those guys. I like to sort of mix it up. Because actually, weirdly enough, when you're doing like, say for example, editorial of a cover, a nice pink cover, say, or black text, just that idea of contrast. I always think like pink, especially if it's like a vibrant with like a nice contrast, it's cool to kind of mix it up on the spectrum. So it's all good. We've got actually, Rick said purple still looks blue to colorblind. Actually, that's an interesting point.
I didn't know that.
No, learning something new. But it's all good. I can see, it's nice to sort of vary the calendars you've got and planners.
Yeah, I'm like you, just depending on the mood or what the other things are that inspire me, I just kind of put a new color up there.
Do you find like with planning in general, are you more pen to paper? Are you more digitally? How does Lisa kind of plan her day or week?
You know, I used to use ClickUp but it's so complicated and has so many things going on. And it's just me. I'm like a one woman team. And so I didn't really need all those bells and whistles. So I switched over to Do, which is French, like TEUX.
I love that site. Yes.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
That's amazing. Yeah.
It seems silly, right? It's just like a couple columns, but it actually, I get more things done.
Yeah. That's so funny. You meant I use that a lot during uni, and I find again it's super simple, right? But it's just I don't know if it's just the format, the layout. It makes you feel, and it feels nice when you've done something, you crossed it off. It's just like a sense of inner achievement, right? So
sometimes I'll like write things down just so I can like click them off to check it off.
I've done a good job today. Great, tick it off.
And it's easy because it just moves it over to the next day for you. Like it's not like you failed yesterday. It's just now on the next day's to-do list.
It's brilliant. Again, it'd be nice to know, again, for those in the chat, I mean, how do you tend to do your to-do list? Are you a pen to paper kind of person? Are you a digital? Put in the chat. It'd be good to we compare. And everyone's actually started to share their favorite colors in the group. I can see, which is quite nice. There's a few purples popping around, which is all good. Always interact with us would be great. And that way I can share it directly with Lisa as she shows us some of her process.
Now, do you ever, when you design, try to go to the Pantone color of the year and like use that as inspiration?
Totally. I've actually got, I mean, you can't see it behind me, but I've got behind me like a little Pantone calendar book. And I can see the different Pantones throughout the years of like which, Pantone's been the Pantone of the year. Which
one's won.
And exactly. And I'm a Pantone kind of guy. It has to be a case of like going through and seeing what works nice. Cooler's quite good actually. Cooler's part of Adobe. If you've ever used it before.
I haven't. I know what you're talking about, but I usually go to Pantone just because I'm worried about like sometimes with branding. I feel like, one, Pantone's easier to spell, but
It's one of those, I mean, you could spend, I guess color's one of those things, right? It's just whether it's digital, print, you could just spend ages trying to find and like match and contrast the right colors. But how do you find when you're designing, do you have like a sort of a plan of action with your colors of how you mix, or do you kind of just experiment as you're going along when you're designing?
I just kind of experiment, or I'll actually look on Pinterest at logos and look at those mood boards to see kind of what colors they put together. Cause I feel like they probably spent hours and hours trying to match them all up. And then I kind of pick what I like.
That's a good shout. I tend to like screenshot on Instagram or from even an out and about. If I just screenshot or take a photograph and then almost create like a mood board, like a visual mood board, just different, packaging, clothing and whatnot, and just try and find, okay, that's a nice green or nice blue or pink, right? Depending on what we're working with. But I mean, I'd love to sort of see some more examples of planners that you've worked with or again, for those who just joined in, what we'll be working on today as well.
Yeah. So also in addition to these, so these planners, the digital planner templates usually have a matching dated planner template in case you want to so like for the most part, a lot of people come to me because they want to sell a physical planner, right? And they want to have it bound and like have it sent to a professional printer. So that's all the dated planners, especially I've switched more to digital planners though for templates because like creating these kind of planners are really expensive. And so usually to get, cause you can sell these for like, I'm going to say $50 or $60 right when they come out, maybe 90 if you're really good at marketing. But in order to get a really low price point, so it's only 50% of your retail price, you're going to have to buy those in bulk from an overseas printer at like 1,000 copies. And so if you're just starting out, that's like pretty daunting. Like, can I sell 1,000 copies? And most people are like, it's going to just sit in my garage. And I don't know if anybody other than my aunt and uncle and my cousin will buy it. Right.
Yeah. It's collecting dust.
Yeah. So the digital planner is like a little bit more low risk, or you could sell these as printables, like as PDFs to people.
I guess as well, like the actual I mean, I'm working editorial and print, and I'm a bit without geeking out a bit, but like the sort of the texture, right? The tactile of actual print or an actual booklet, even the binding. For me, it feels quite nice I live by Moleskine books. So I've always got Moleskine and I'm writing down notes and planners. So again, do you find like when you've created and then you set to print and then you've got say like an actual planner, do you love that feeling of that sort of, yes, it's in hand? Or again, are you more digital, would you say?
I think, the actual physical planner, most people like that, that hard cover, like you can hear it. That cardstock. But as far as usually I want to say, and I'm kind of generalizing here, but that leather bound planner, what people are doing now, if you look at Fig Baron, and Fig Baron's like a very high end planner company. And so what they'll do is they'll create a wrap. It's on my other side of my room, but they'll create a wrap that's all leather. And then the actual interior is like a really cheap $10 notebook. And you just kind of stuff it into the leather cover, right? So then that way you can just keep replacing it every year and keep your leather like wrap. And that usually tends to be a little bit more popular with men, just because they want something a little more muted and more high end for like, say, an executive or corporate position.
Nice. Okay, that's awesome. I feel like, I'm being educated right now on the planning. I've never really thought about that. It's still good because again, it's nice to. I feel like we're in a period, right, of where everyone is kind of planning something, and we're starting to bit more planning now. We're out of lockdown and all these things. So this is really useful, and I think it's like, and again for our Adobe audience who've tuned in, everyone's here to sort of see your insight into how you operate, how you work. So I'm excited to sort of see as it kind of goes into the next days. And actually, I can see a few people in the chat have actually put in what they tend to do in terms of how they plan, and there's a lot of pen to paper. People have said.
Oh, yeah.
So
people still love paper. I mean, stationery, last time I checked, it's like a $2 billion industry. So, and that's all stationery, notebooks and I think a lot of people just enjoy going into an office supply store, as silly as that sounds, right? Like, totally. Post-its. I think people like the idea of getting organized, maybe more than actually doing the actual organization. And so, so I mean, planners, I think and this is almost like 10 years ago, but Erin Condren's a huge planner company. And I think the last reported revenues that she had was 40 million, and she's just one person. So, you can actually make a huge empire out of selling planners.
I mean, this is going to give ideas now, which is great to our Adobe. I mean, do it. Like, this has been amazing. Again, it's the idea of just, starting a project and kind of seeing it through. And this is the time where we're in a safe space as creatives, we can make these things happen.
Yeah, there's no other really product where people will keep coming back to consistently year after year, because nobody, after you're done with your 2020 planner, you're ready for your 2021, and then you're ready for your 2022, right? Like, so you have a recurring revenue. It's not like a one and done sort of like a car or something.
Totally. And we've got actually quite a good question from Voodoo, who's kind of keeping the chat, nice and organized. And I've got an actual definition of it, what it is online, just so I can kind of make sure I got the right meaning. But from what does Pantone mean? We kind of mentioned Pantone when we were kind of going through and talking. And I've actually got the real definition. And there's like those are variants of how that could mean. But what would you say Pantone means for those in the chat and the audience who don't really know what that is?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who don't know. Like, I created a video, like, what is Pantone, right? And why should you care? I always tell people it's just a company, and they make color swatches. And back in the, I mean, even still today, like back in the old days, you had to buy those color swatches so that you could be like, I want color blue 49571 or whatever, right? And that's, I don't even know, like 1/8 of a tint off from blue 54321, right? So I would say, like, if you go to a Home Depot, if you go down the paint aisle, you're going to see all of those swatches.
I'm so glad you mentioned, I used to work, I mean, without going to a piece, before when I was 17, I used to work at a sort of DIY shop, and we actually had like basically tints of paint, and you can select the kind of swatch that you like. And it was amazing because, again, you could see the paint being actually sort of made sort of there and then. And I mean, I loved that. That was pretty awesome just to watch the sort of paint going, swirling around. But yeah, I've actually got, again, and I'm not gonna try and pretend like I need this myself because it's online, but it actually says, so in 1963, Pantone basically means all color, which is a mixture of pan and tone. So there we go, a little fun fact for our audience in terms of where Pantone kind of started out. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Great.
So we have a look a bit more into what we're working on for today.
Sure. Yeah. So these are the digital planners. So we're probably going to make, and I say probably because I kind of eyeball everything. We're probably going to make a digital planner together in Adobe InDesign that looks like this, where you're just going to flip through. You're going to see all the different months of the year. We have some blank pages here. We're going to create a monthly layout. And that's kind of it.
Awesome. Is InDesign for me, InDesign is definitely my go-to as a print designer, but is that the one you use the most, would you say, of all the programs, InDesign, Photoshop, or?
I would say half and half. So I use some InDesign, and then I use, I've started using Photoshop more because I noticed a lot of people are having trouble selling these. So I've created these pop-up shops, and inside the pop-up shop, you're going to get a ton of different things. Like, let me try to open the wedding planner. You're going to get a ton of different things to try to help you sell the planner, right? So visually, people need to be able to see it. Like, do I really want this? Oh, look, here it is on your phone. Here it is, on a computer. Here, here are some different ways that the pages look. Here's your mood board, right? So these were all meant to be sort of social media posts like that are done for you, so that they could use those to help entice people to buy the planners that they're buying from me to resell, I guess. So I'm kind of like a private label.
I get that.
That's the right word.
Cool. We've actually got quite a good question, actually, excuse me, by R. Murchie, who said, he's curious to know, what would you say for your clients, the sort of percentage of like male and female, if you had to kind of break it?
I don't have clients, but I would say customers, I would say it's 99% women, 1% men. However, I still do have male, like I can check the names, I'm guessing, right? And I would think some of them are men, and I get emails from men too. And they just, they still sell these, like this pretty wedding planner too.
The 1% going strong. We need to, I'm without getting too much, I'm planning my wedding, so I guess this would be quite a useful tip for myself. I'll hop on there, but that's all good.
And then I taught people how to, same thing, like a lot of people were just confused, like, how do I sell these on Etsy? And so I have a whole guide on like how to sell these on Etsy. Here are some blog posts that you can write about to like get people interested in your planner. How to do the Etsy SEO keywords, and how to set up your shop and hook up Google Analytics. So everything in the shop is either meant to give you inventory that you can sell or create to have printed, or to help you actually get established as a planner business.
That's really cool. So that you almost like covered, as a business, obviously every sort of aspect. You've got the design elements of it, but also there's this sort of strategic, planning, admin kind of side, which kind of coincides from it, which is really, really cool. And that's a great sort of, and where can we sort of, just so again for the chat, for those who are just finding out now and just tuning in, where can they sort of find your website on, so they can have an idea?
You can just go to my website, which is prettyfabulousdesigns.com.
That's a strong name, by the way. just to make it,
And then once you're there, if you click on shop, then that'll take you right to where we were.
Awesome. Okay.
Right here.
So for those of you in the chat, if you're curious or you're planning a wedding or any other bits and bobs, this is definitely a good site to sort of check out.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, and there's some freebies in there too.
And some Christmas gifts actually as well, our merch, he said. So there we go. Think about Christmas already. We're in August, but actually it will come very quick, won't it?
Yeah, right.
You know? Okay, cool. So we get to so sort of see a bit more into it's with the InDesign document that you've got up. Was they were pre-made before? How do you find, like, you know, with the designs, getting them on there? How do you, is there a process behind it?
You know, it's funny you say that. I don't really have a process. I kind of just wing everything. I noticed that when I was looking at other people that went to college for this, they're like much more disciplined. They are like, I like to set up my baselines. And I was like, I don't even know what the baselines are. So, you know, I'm so glad you're here though, because I saw yours. You guys should all watch Kieran's. It was 3 days of a live stream.
Plug mine.
Yeah, it was. I learned stuff that I didn't even know that honestly Adobe InDesign could do. So,
amazing.
So I was like, it's a good thing Kieran's here in case I don't know something, which is highly likely.
Police. That's good.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So everyone will ask me, do I have an InDesign course? And I 100% do not. I really just use InDesign for what I need to use it for, if that makes sense. So when you're self-taught, you're like, I don't know what this button does. I can't imagine any time I would ever use it. I will just pretend it doesn't exist. Right. And so the shortcuts too, like I know you had a bunch of shortcuts that you know how to use, and I didn't know how to use any of those. So,
but it's crazy that you say that. Yeah. Oh, sorry. No, go for it.
No, I was going to say, so that's just my non-process.
No, but I like it because I guess with the programs that we've got, Adobe, obviously we have so many design programs and InDesign, Photoshop, you know, Premiere, video. But this is the beauty of obviously with Adobe and, you know, Adobe Live that we do in sessions, is that because you're able to learn, there's a lot of tutorials as well, which is great. So when you mentioned obviously my tutorial I did, that was an editorial, but you know, we had one a few weeks ago with Izzy, and then a few weeks before that with Rachel. So again, we've got loads of, if you just tuned in now and you're kind of curious about editorial design or planning, you know, definitely check on some Adobe Live content that we've got. And then you can kind of follow up on that, because when you mentioned about, I know about all the tricks, I'm still learning, honestly. I don't even know I know a lot of it, but again, there's a lot of, you have to basically play around, right? And just learn and just have fun with it. That's the beauty of like these design programs. You can just have fun. There's no rules, unless it's a client, obviously. Then there's rules, right. But usually it's all
luckily
good.
I don't have clients, so.
But you get experiment, and it's great. And actually, again, with the audience that we have, which is really nice, is that, you know, it's such a good range of people who are just starting out, people maybe who've been in industry for many years, but just curious to see what's current. It ranges. So when you mentioned about like kind of winging it and experimenting, I think we're in a good place for that. So like, yeah, okay. I feel like we're in a safe space to experiment, have fun.
I think like, because sometimes when you watch a video from Kira and you're like, oh my God, this is so overwhelming. I don't even want to open the application. And it does look scary, but you can ignore like 90% of the things that Kieran did, because you might not need those. Right. And so it's a lot of knowledge. I see a lot of like tutorials like yours or other people's, and I'm like, that's really interesting. But I'm like, I don't know where I'd ever need to use it. So I like see it and then I forget it.
It's also that feeling though, I guess it's like learning anything, but once you kind of master, even like shortcuts, I know how it sounds a bit crazy and like, but once you know how to do a sort of shortcut, your brain is just like, oh yes, I can skip out a few extra minutes of going on the tab. So again, like there's loads of tutorials to catch up on, you know, Adobe Live and loads of Adobe stuff. So for those of you who are just curious, like definitely, you know, watch some tutorials and sort of catch up on, you know, how to do some different programs and have fun as well. You've got to have fun with it, right? That's the whole point of being creative, to have fun and experiment. So it's all good.
For sure. All right. So did you want me to start designing?
Yeah, please. Let's have it. Let's go into it. And
So everything you see here, we're going to shut this down because we are going to actually start in Adobe Photoshop. So you could do this in InDesign. But again, like I said, I always do things that just seem easier to me. So to me, Photoshop is easier to create all those background images that we saw over there. So the biggest thing that people ask is size. So over here, we're going to do just create new. And so for the size, you're going to make sure that this is landscape, we're going to make all those background images that you see. So when you have a digital planner and you click around, it seems like magic. Like I just clicked January and it just opened to January. So we're going to make that magic happen, which isn't as exciting as it looks. It's like, everyone's like, can't I just click a button for January? I'm like, there's no such thing.
One day we'll live in a world where you can have a January button, right? You can just, you can embrace it.
So this is kind of, the dimensions that I would use 1336 pixels wide by 960 tall. And I would leave it at 300, mostly because it's so small, you're probably not going to notice. And we can save this out so it takes up less space. You can just leave all the rest as is. So this is basically your background right here. So I don't know why this is locked. I always hit unlock just in case I change my mind later and I want to delete it. I don't know. But we're going to, I need freedom to do stuff. So for your background, I usually just head over to Adobe Stock. And let me just try to move us.
And just a quick one again, for those of you who are just kind of joined in and sort of seen, the new document came up and thought, why pixels? If you don't know, obviously we're working on digitally. Pixels is the ideal one to work with, and obviously millimeters if you're doing for print. So just as for those again who are just kind of tuning in and a bit confused with what's happening, we're in that process of seeing how we create a planner with obviously Lisa as well. So welcome if you just joined us, and let's have a look through Adobe Stock.
It's interesting you say that. I always say inches because I use the old system.
Of course.
Do you use, when you send stuff to US printers, do you still send it in millimeters?
It depends on what I do. It's just force of habit. Based in the UK, that's what we would do it as. But again, when you're working with printers, you kind of have to kind of work with what they're working with. So like my brain kind of switch off into kind of like US mode or like just an alternative space for how to work with. But I do work with millimeters.
Yeah, because sometimes people are like, can I have 120 millimeters? I'm like, what is a millimeter?
What is that? It's a strange concept you're talking to me about.
Okay, so you just want anything, because we said we're going to go with blue. So your background's kind of, blue skies. We probably don't want a photo. So we're going to do blue background. So looking through here, I'm thinking now, maybe I don't want blue. Maybe I want to contrast it with something. So I do kind of like this one, which clearly I already used. So I'm just going to I don't need to download that. I'm going to download this file.
Adobe Stock is pretty awesome, right? With the amount of stuff you can just it's like a universe of just different things you need. Very, very good. For
sure. And everything here is always higher quality than you can find on the other stock images. So to contrast it, let's do maybe a light gray. And every time I spell gray, I'm like, is it an A? Is it an E? I don't know.
Tomato.
Right.
Yeah, it's a thing.
So you want like a nice texture. This might look a little bit too much like paper. This might be a little too shiny because you're just going to see the very edges of it. So let's do gray cement. Okay, so I kind of like these a little better. I actually really like this one.
I love
we're just going to take this
Pretty
one.
cool, right?
Yeah, it's like subtle, but still has some personality to it. All right, so really easy. You can so my method again, I just kind of test things out. I just go over here and I just drag this over here. And we're just gonna, it's really easy. I just stretch it out and then just hit the return key over here. So that kind of looks a little bit like a leather grain. So let's try the other one. This is really bright blue. And I think that was the same one. Yeah, that was the preview. All right, so I have a gray, I have a blue. I'm probably going to go with the gray. So we'll just turn that off. So if you're not used to Photoshop, over here in the layers panel, and if you don't see layers, you can just go to window and make sure that layers is checked. In this panel right here, it looks like an eye. And so it just means I can see you, I can't see you. I can see you, I can't see you. So in case I think this is a little too dark, I could also go over here to opacity and just turn it down a little. And so what'll happen is it becomes less opaque and it picks up that color from behind. So it's going to just pick up that white color if I wanted to. So
Photoshop is one of those, again, it's those programs you can play around so much, right? With like the effects or the layers and overlapping.
Yeah,
it's
and you can break so many things. So if you make a mistake, like I did, if you just go to window, because I make mistakes all the time because I don't know what I'm doing, you can see every single like thing you've ever done. You could go all the way back up to here. And it's like nothing you did ever happened. You can just, if only life were
just
like
erase from life in general.
Yeah. Make all your mistakes go away instantly. All right. So, but that's only if you need it. And that's up here at the window. All right. So next we're going to actually make what are just facing pages. So remember I said it looks like magic. You're going to make the magic. So to make a page, it's really easy. Over here at the bottom left, you're just going to go to the rectangle tool. Now, I think my default, is the same as everybody else. If you go to window, I'm not sure what you're using, but if you use essentials, that'll make it so your workspace looks like my workspace. Because I know sometimes when I watch tutorials, I'm like, wait, I don't have that button.
It looks so different to my one.
Yeah,
I know
where
what you
did
mean.
that come from? So over here, it looks like a rectangle. Now yours, depending on what last tool you used, it might look like a circle or a triangle or a polygon or something else. But we only need the rectangle. And again, I kind of eyeball it. So up here are all of those pixels. And I think if you go to window, if you go to view and you make sure rulers is shown, then you can see your guides at the top and the right. Hold on. I am not good with math, so I did the math ahead of time, but 1336 divided by 2 is 668. So right around the 668.
You could have done that and not even told us that. You just, calculate top of your head and we'd be like, wow, right. She is insanely good at maths.
So if you go over here to these, the rulers and you just click once and then drag, once you get over here, I don't know how this works. It just magically works. It just gives you the numbers. So once you hit 668, you can let go. So this won't show up on your actual design. It's just a guide for you. So now you know where the middle of the page is. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to make that rectangle. So all you have to do is put it, kind of eyeball it where you want it, and then just drag and drop to create that piece of paper. Now the piece of paper, keep in mind, we had tabs at the top and we had tabs on the right, just like it's a real planner. So, leave as much or little space as you want to read those letters. And don't worry, you can change this later. Obviously, you don't want a pink piece of paper. So over here at the top, once you have rectangle selected, you're going to see the fill and you can change it to white. Now, I recently used white, so that's why I can see it. If you don't have that, you can open this up. And usually I pick the top left, which isn't a true white. But if you just do F until it becomes white, then it's white. That's as technical as I get. So I like to label these over here. So in your layers panel, because it's going to get really messy, I double click this and then you can label it. So just
paper. On that topic as well. I mean, it's always a curious one seeing how other creators work with Photoshop, and if you're like a naming the layer or color code kind of put. I'm a color code without geeking out too much, but everyone's got their own sort of
I only color code if it's a smart object, because sometimes I don't know which one to change and I'll color it green.
Nice.
And I'll be like, oh, that's the one I changed. And that's usually when I have somebody else's template.
Okay, gotcha. It's interesting. Again, if you're in the chat and you're used to using Photoshop, like, it'd be good to know, like, are you a color code kind of person? Are you a folder? Are you a kind of like, let's just put it there, see what happens? It's all good. But I guess everyone has their own ways. But it'd be good to know for the audience, how do you kind of tend to operate with your foldering system? Everyone's got a different way of working. So share it, and I'll share it with Lisa.
All right. So you want your page on the left to be the same size as the page on the right. So what you're going to do, all I do is I do a right click on that layer and I'll just say duplicate layer. And then here, I'm going to name it left paper. And so now that I have that selected, and if you don't, you can use Command T and that'll highlight that object. And then you can just drag and drop it. So if you kind of hold it, I always just call this magic when I don't know the technical term. It will magically give you those lines to line you up.
Yeah. I mean,
So
there's no cheesiness to it, but like Photoshop's magic, right? So we're just gonna drop that in there as like a disclaimer, just so we know Adobe is magic. So boom, if you don't know how it works, it's gonna be magic, right? That makes it work.
So they're probably a little too far apart. So I'm gonna just nudge these over. And this probably isn't the most scientific way, but I will count the number of times I hit the arrow key. So I'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then the next one, I'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So then I know that they're lined up.
Just a little tip. One thing you mentioned about like some of the tricks and tips. I think if I'm getting it right, if you select both of your papers on, and then if you go to window, this is the part where I should get it right, and I hope I do. Okay. If you go to window and object layout, you can basically distribute it evenly, so you don't have to kind of nudge it. Am I doing this right?
Do you mean this tool right here?
There we go. Yeah, but then there's actually
the spacing.
Exactly. Distribute. So
sometimes see how it's like grayed out though. That's why sometimes I don't do it.
Okay, gotcha.
Like,
but that's a brilliant tool. I mean, that's like super useful for those of you just sort of learning like how Photoshop works. If you ever want to do like shapes and like distribute it, you can do it by the eye, of course, but to get it 100% accurate, it's always good to use like these kind of, you've got like a line distribution. I can't remember what the last one was on that little window you had up, but yeah, that's a good one to use, especially for InDesign as well. Yeah, it's a good one.
Or you just count the buttons.
1, 2. You actually do like a billboard, like I don't know if like someone wrote, you have to try and count how many.
But yes, Kieran's way is the more scientific way. So, all right.
You
so
always
now
have
that we
more fun though, by the way. But yeah, go for it.
We're gonna do the top tab. So it's really easy. It looks like it's magic on the actual planner, but you're just gonna go over here to the rectangle tool again, and you're just going to draw a rectangle. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it because it doesn't really matter if it is on top or bottom. Oh, you know what I forgot to do? The left and the right paper, I think because I was using another application before, it rounded those corners. We actually don't want rounded corners. So if you select this rectangle tool and whoops, the zoom thing is popping up. And if you go over here, whoops. Oh, why isn't it working?
You zoom in a bit more. I think you got those sort of circles on the points, and then I think if you're right, you can stretch it out, and it sort of curves in. If the magic works, we can actually see as well.
Oh, drag down Photoshop. Oh, okay. There we go.
We've got some really good comments as well, actually, about how people have sort of, whilst you're doing that, Lisa, I'll kind of feed some comments to you. So we've got an example about how people have sort of, their layering system, and it's all diverse. It's great. We've got Gareth who said, layer 9,271 of group 358 type there. It's for me, but super organized for clients. Again, we've got some more about different ways of doing it. Debbie said, both folders and color code, but mostly folders and naming, which is probably the most like obvious way of doing it. But yeah, especially if you're working like a big design program where you kind of need to have multiple things happening, just for your sanity levels. I guess just folders and color codes is always a good one. So yeah, again, put down in the chat. How do you kind of tend to operate when you're working with big files? Layering it, and again, I'll feed that into Lisa, and we can basically discuss that and yeah, get some different ways of how we can design.
I'm just going to start over. So now I'm going to make up.
If you zoom very closely in, are they still square? Are they curved? Through my eyes.
They're square because I just deleted the other ones. It wouldn't. Okay. It was like graying me out. Awesome. So.
Got nothing against curved edges, by the way, just in the chat. We do love curved edges here, but for today we're working with straighter ones just to mix it up.
Right paper. Left paper. Okay. Now we're going to try it again. All right. So here's our first rectangle. And this is usually what I like to call the home button. And so, yes, I just use the arrows again. So we're going to label this home. And we're going to label it home right side, because we're also like when you open a planner regularly from left to right, the tabs also go left to right. So we're going to have another tab on the left as well. So this is home right. Now I want to add some color to this, or maybe I want to add, actually, I really like adding texture to the top ones. So I might take, let's see, some different backgrounds. So I downloaded some already. So I have just some different colors to kind of play around with and test out over here at the top.
I love that smoky one. That was pretty
this
like
one?
psychedelic. Yeah, that's quite, can you spacebar on that? We can zoom a bit more in, we can all sort of see that. I'm getting like psychedelic kind of vibes. Yeah, that's cool. But that's just preference. I mean,
I did not know I could spacebar on images.
Did you?
I did.
The plot thickens. I love that.
Yeah.
So that's always quite a little nice one. If you don't want to, again, for those in the chat, if you're kind of maybe new to kind of using programs, you can double click. Of course you can, and you can obviously see the preview box, but a little space bar, and then boom, you're almost in there.
Giving my left hand something to do to help out. All right. So let's try that smoky background. So usually what I do, and I know this is way huge, I just drag and drop this on top. And then I'm going to right click over here and create clipping mask. So now it's just in that one tab. I don't know, do I like this part of it? Let me go here. So you want to do, I do a Command T, so then I just move that one object. And I just kind of play around until I find like what part of this would look best with a blue background.
Do you want to zoom in a little bit as well so we can see
a bit
more? Let's see your creative. There we go.
Is that better?
That's nice. Yeah. So we can all see it super clear.
So I think this is pretty, but because of the gold foiling, it's going to be hard to read letters on it. So I'm probably going to pick something a little darker with maybe just the foiling over here on the side.
I can see as well, we've had a few people sort of joining in and they're probably thinking, what's going on? Why is there like a color moving around? So, I mean, first of all, welcome and, great to have you guys here. And we've got Lisa, the wonderful Lisa, who's a YouTuber, course creator, and also a graphic designer. So we're in the process of creating our digital planner. So welcome. And I can actually see we've got we've got Isabel, who was actually here not long ago on Adobe Live. So welcome, Izzy. We've got Ali from Northern Cali. So that's your neck of the woods, right? Am I right in saying?
Yeah, Cali.
There we go. So we've got a few people who just joined. So welcome. And you're in the flow of Lisa's Adobe Live. So welcome.
So I kind of like this one. So once you find a place that you like it, you can actually stretch this out a little too if you want to expand that spot. Whoops. As long as you make sure you're selecting the right thing. And I'm just going to leave it there. So wherever you want to leave it, you can click somewhere on the screen, or you can just hit the return button and it'll kind of like lock it in there. So we want this to be behind the piece of paper. So again, like I said, it looks like it's magically behind it. So we're going to go ahead, and to get that magically behind, we just have to move it so that the paper is on top. So we're going to move both of these pieces of paper over here to the top. And we probably won't use this blue background, so we're just going to go ahead and delete it. We can always add it back in if we change our mind again. All right, so over here, what I'm going to do is that home button, I'm going to probably make a button for, let's say, like goals or an annual or monthly or something like that. So I'm going to right click this and I am going to go to duplicate layer again. But I'm going to call this goals. And of course, this came undone. So
I'm guilty of doing the same thing so many times. When you've got your clipping mask in and you're like, it's like you're in, it's like, oh no, okay, something popped out. So I guess you probably, for those of you who are very, Photoshop savvy or, just starting out, be always cautious of that with layer systems and when you do clipping masks, because the crafty little buggers, aren't they? Sometimes when they can sort of slip around. So watch out for that. And that, to be fair, that's why we kind of mentioned the foldering system, because that kind of keeps things a little bit more nice and tidy, and makes you more zen as well, right? I find, so you're not going crazy.
So we'll just create all of our tabs right now. So the next one will be annual. we'll move that over. So we've kind of run out of space. So we can do a couple things. And again, if I had done the math, I would know. But because I didn't and I eyeballed it, that's why we ran out. But I probably want to change, or I could change this. I could get rid of goals and I could just make this a monthly or just make this annual and monthly if I wanted. But we're going to go ahead and we're just going to stop there at 3. And we're going to move all of these. I'm going to select all of these over here. Whoops, on the right, these 3 tabs. And I'm just going to move those over so they kind of line up with the right side, because that looks a little bit more natural to me when I think about like a planner. So the next one is annual. I lie. The next one is goals. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to try to pick a background that we kind of like. So if we could use that same one here and then just go ahead and let me not duplicate that. Let me actually pull it in.
So again, hopefully, I was going to say, for those who've just sort of, just joined in, I guess they're probably seeing, what's happening. We're in that real flow now of, designing the planners. So, which is great. I was going to say, so like Lisa, I'm quite curious about, how did you get into this kind of space that you're operating, like in terms of planning? Was there like a sort of spark where you're like, okay, I plan a lot and I, tend to like buy planners, or what kind of got you into this space?
No, I totally failed at my first online business. So I wanted to I learned pretty much a lot of things through failure. I'm like one of those people that always has to learn stuff the hard way. But basically, I wanted to be a fitness coach. And that was like my whole thing. And I couldn't make it work. I was really bad at it. I'm not good at one-on-one stuff. And so one of my clients was like, you're just telling me too much stuff. Can you just put it in a book for me? And I was like, okay, well, it's a custom program. So I created a fitness planner for her. And then for everybody else, I was like, well, maybe this will be an incentive so people sign up with me. Nice. And so basically people were way more interested in my fitness planner than they were in any fitness advice I actually had coming out of my mouth. They were like, unless it's in a planner or notebook, we really don't want to hear from you. And so that's how, and then someone else was like, actually, can you make me a planner too for my clients? And then someone else was getting married and they were like, can you make a wedding planner? And so that's how I started making planners.
That's awesome. That sounds like, again, like just organically things kind of grew, word of mouth. And obviously it's something you generally enjoy doing, which that feeds into whenever you're creating, your best work. That's awesome. That's awesome to know. We do have what's quite nice again with Adobe Live, we have such a range of people that come on, whether you might have studied, design for years at uni, or, you're just starting out and be later on in life. That's the beauty of, these kind of programs, because you can sort of find out people's perspective on how they've kind of, found their ways. And obviously you can watch more stuff online, tutorials, and get, a real feel for how us creators work. So it's quite cool to know your background story there, Lisa. And tell us more again. It's always nice to have a feel for the designer behind the screen. So always good to know more about you.
Sure. So I think that that other design looks a little too similar, so it's hard to differentiate those. So I'm trying another tab design. So I just pulled this one. I said create clipping mask. So it does definitely look different than the other one. And I'm just skipping around.
My brain almost wants to do like drop shadows on them, just so I can feel like, I know that's like a mock-up, but again, it's like your brain kind of tells you, that's the one in front or behind, and so forth.
Yeah, that's a great idea. All right, so there's one. So if we did drop shadow, so with the home right,
I remember like as a sort of young creator just starting out and playing around so much with drop shadows. I don't know why I thought drop shadows was super cool. I don't know, geeking out now. But yeah, it's just one of those ones where it's just like, you can obviously within reason, because otherwise it just looks completely fake, but it is a very good tool and again, everything you're looking in there, if you're still new, there's a lot of different styles that you can sort of see Lisa's got up on our screen. So definitely explore and experiment if you get a chance to.
It's like magic.
Magic. It's the Adobe magic. That's what he said.
Magic happens.
I love that.
All right. So here's our last one, the annual. And the annual, I think I had a third style we could try out. All right.
And you mentioned like as well, like inspiration, like you said before, you said Pinterest was one of your sort of go-to. Is that right? Inspiration?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you use any other, I mean, do you ever like, I guess maybe planning, do you ever go into like shops and see examples of other planners and what they've done? Like, do you find ever a source of inspiration? Was it mainly, would you say, just online?
Not really, only because a lot of the planners that are out there in the shops, like physically when you go into a store, especially at Office Depot or something, are usually, and I don't want to say more masculine, they're more gender neutral. So they're a little plainer, and they're not as full of color. And I think that's great for corporate. And then maybe if you're not so corporate, it's not as great. So I think, so I usually try to stay away from those, only because my whole brand and everything is like, it's pretty and it's colorful. And so, and it will use up a lot of ink. What?
Pretty fabulous, right? There we go. That's the brand name. So there you put it out there. I get that.
All right. So I really like this style. The only problem is it's red. So I'm going to, this is my cheat. I'm sure there's a better way, but I usually go down here to that little half circle. I go to hue saturation. And then I just kind of change it until it's that blue color I want. Oh, let me turn on the clipping mask so it doesn't, so then it will only do that one. And I wait till I get kind of more of a blue color. So there we go. So that's more in line with the blue that we want.
I love the textures as well. They're quite nice. And I'm loving that. And for me, that third one's my favorite. I don't know what everyone in the chat, if put down if you like the first, second, or third. What's kind of your preference tab? But I'm digging the third one, definitely.
Great. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is now we need to make the side tabs. So this one does require a little bit of math. Did I do the math ahead of time? I don't think I did. So usually, so this one I said, what did I say this was? So if we go here to the selection tool and we go to that piece of paper. So this piece of paper it's about 50 to 900. So I'm going to guess that's, let's see, I need a calculator.
We always need calculators to say today. There's no judgment here. It's a safe space. It's all good.
So I'm going to say it's about 870 divided by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So probably 72 is the width that I'm going for. So if I come back here to that rectangle and I change this back to, I think if I change it to a 10, it'll be circular again. And if I come up here and I just want to create a rectangle, there we go. Oh, I did the math and I didn't even do it. Okay, so it's going to feel like it's pretty small. Did I say 72?
Yep.
Height 72. So that seems really small. Let's try 75. It's my best guess at math.
I always find what you could, I mean, maybe this is a cheating way of doing it, but you could always get your 12 in a row, and then once you've got them aligned, then scale back up, because obviously by default, if you've got them 12 sort of side by side, and then you just I mean, that's just me throwing an idea. If you've got your own way of doing it, by all means.
My way is not as efficient as your way. So, you're saying I can do 12, line them up, and then just scale it?
Yeah, exactly. So if you sort of duplicate what you're doing, so if you, I think it's the, I guess right now, yeah, duplicate. And then you can do them, obviously, there's quite a few times, but doing that, your 12 times. And then that way, once, even if they go over, you can still group and then just scale back all together. So no matter what happens, yeah, there we go. That's even more easier when you just have them together. But it makes me realize how like quick the year goes as well. I don't know why planning for a planner or designing for a planner, it makes you realize how quick this year has gone as well. It's pretty crazy.
Look, my estimate was almost there.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh, okay. So what did you say I do?
Yeah, no, in fact, you're actually, if you sort of zoom right into that end one, you can, if you select them all, keep them all selected. And then if you zoom in whilst they're still selected at the very end, you can sort of see how much distance you have left until the end of the paper. So you can maybe just bring in, I feel like that's pretty much on the spot. So do you want a gap in between as well?
Yeah, like a tiny bit of a gap.
Gap.
So yeah, so this one didn't have a gap. So maybe they're.
I wonder if the object line, would that come in handy? Maybe the distribution, if that would.
Try that. So I think these are all lined up, and then.
It's always, where do we find it? It was in a.
It's not that. Sometimes the zoom menu goes on top of my Photoshop menu. Okay, so now
I'm fighting for your attention, Lisa. That's what it is. It's like, give me more attention. I think it's like, is that the last one? Distribute spacing. I think you had it pretty much there.
Oh, look, it fixed it.
Nice and clean. Nobody
needs math. All right, so let's see. This is January, right? And then I'm just going to keep going down the line. February, right? And so obviously this is backwards. So I'm going to move my layers so they're a little more March, right?
Just to mention, I mean, Vida's actually made a really good point. So that you may want to make sure that those bottom four just have a little bit more distance. So again, I guess when you start designing, you'll probably realize, and then you add color. It's always tricky because it's white and it's blurred in now, isn't it? So it feels like, but when you start to maybe add the colors, you might be able to see if things need a bit more distance more than the others.
But we hit the distribute, so it should be fine, right?
Can you zoom it? Yeah, maybe it's my eyes then. Should be fine. Let's wing it. Let's see how we go and see when you start designing. Maybe you're right. Maybe it should be fine. But you never know. Distribute can't lie to us. It's if it's distributed, it's gotta be.
It's all right. White. As soon as I change the colors, it'll be a little easier. Here we go. August, right?
And just to say as well, if you just joined in, actually, welcome again, and you're in the process now of watching Lisa, of course, and YouTuber and graphic designer, of course, and we're designing a planner. We're seeing her process, and we're using quite a lot of tools. Using Photoshop now. We're going to use a bit of InDesign, I think, maybe a bit later, and then we've used a bit of Adobe Stock, which is quite nice, just to get some colors and textures. So welcome, and you're in the thick of it right now, which is great. And also, just a little flag: if you're on YouTube, pop over to Behance. That way you can actually watch us do it on that way. And also we can feed in your comments directly to Lisa. So anything you've got, any burning questions that you have in terms of planning or design or how Lisa operates, or, where did she get her inspiration from, put it in the chat and I will share it directly with Lisa.
All right. So I usually like to stagger the right to go with the blue. So to color these, you can double click here, or you can just select the rectangle tool and then go up here to the fill. So it looks like I was using a blue before. I kind of like this one, so I'm going to stick with that. And then for contrast for February, what we're going to do is, because I want to stay in that same color family. I don't know if this is like logically the best way, but I'll select that same color. I'll come up here to the color picker, and then I'll go up here to the top left, and I'll just pick a color that's a shade lighter. And then I know that they, in theory, kind of match already.
Nice. It's weird. I just to add to that, I mean, when I do sort of like colors to matching, if you, for example, go back to that last one you were just on, it's just, again, everyone's got different ways of working, but where you've got if you click into your color swatches, you see you've got the CMYK and you've got the breakdown, or maybe RGB in our case, because we're web. You can always do shift. Yeah. So sorry, when you go back to your color swatch, you're in the right place before.
Go open the color picker.
Yeah, you go into there.
Okay.
And then where you've got the RGB at the bottom, I always tend to maybe just shift the numbers up, say I don't know, a bit more black or and so forth. And that way you can see different variants of that color. If that makes sense. So for example, if you go into I don't know, type in, I don't know, say 280 perhaps, you can sort of see variants of a bit too off piece now, completely off piece. But usually it works sometimes when you're working with different colors. Add a bit more cyan, a bit more magenta, just to kind of get a different range of like different variants of that one color. It's quite nice. But the beauty of this as well is it's definitely ones where you're just, experimenting and just playing around, and you can do it by eye, or you can just maybe type in the numbers if you're a design geek and know the Pantone and hex code values, which I don't know all of them, but I know a few, but not all. But yeah, sorry, just to put that out there as an idea as well.
That's great. All right. Where were we? February, so I'll double click March, and then I'll just use the eyedropper then after that. There might be a faster way to do this, but I feel like there's only 12 of them. So
it's doable.
Yeah. Because sometimes to line things up to do some shortcut sometimes takes longer.
It's tricky. It depends. I guess I always find like it's one of those ones where I always remember when I was kind of starting out and watching other designers work, and it was super quick and like using a tablet and thinking to myself, well, I know how I'm working. It's all good. But then once you kind of do like a tutorial or you learn up about it, it's weird. Like opens a door to your brain. Like, okay, actually, I can still do what I'm doing, or I can just learn about it a bit more and just speed up just by a little bit more. But yeah, everyone's got their own sort of ways of working. So it's all good. We're in a safe space. We can share.
Safe space. All right. So these tabs are on top, so it doesn't look magical. So we're going to take the left and the right, and we're just going to drag these all the way up here. So they're on top. So now it looks like it's magical again, so that the tabs.
You're going to be known as the magical designer, Lisa. I love that. You're going to be known as the magical, the magical Adobe Live designer.
Everything in Photoshop's just magic. Can I do a drop shadow on all of these at once?
Yeah, I mean, you can do. I'll probably put them in a folder as well. Maybe just as if you had them in a folder, then you can just add a.
It won't let me select drop shadow. Oh, let's see.
So yeah, if they're all in
right tabs. Oh, I see what you're saying.
No,
and this will apply to everything in that folder, you're saying?
Yep, exactly. So it's just like, I usually do that as well with, if I want colors to be all the same, rather than duplicating it several times, you just put them all in one folder and then just basically add an effect to that folder because it will just group it and keep it there. So there we go. Just speed things up.
It seems to be changing everything. Maybe it's just too big. Oh, there we go. No. That's a crazy large shadow.
Do you want them a bit closer? So it's a bit more closer to your tabs? So if you go to distance and you it's the third, there we go. You can bring it a little bit.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. So it doesn't feel like it's like levitating your desk. That'd be a cool notepad, to be fair. A levitating notepad.
It's that
it wouldn't be functional,
movie.
But it wouldn't be functional. It's like a chocolate teapot. But yeah.
All right. Okay. So there we go. So now we have all the tabs on the right, and now we have to duplicate them for the left. So if we go over here, let's do.
I can see on the chat we're having a lot of we've got Anika who's just joined as well. So hello, Anika. Welcome. Nika's a bit of a regular, which is great, and she's feeling your blue that you've got here, Lisa. So
nice.
Some love for your blue color.
The blues. All right, so we have the top right tabs, and we have the right. I guess we can just call these right side tabs. There we go. So all we have to do is duplicate this over here on the left side as well. So I think I can just duplicate this group. Let's see. And we'll call this.
Yes. Anika made a very good point, actually, just a flag, save your documents just in case.
Oh.
That's probably, do you know what? That is something that is like classic 101 design. It's like, I'm having a great time. Oh yeah, wait, I need to save as.
That's funny.
So good one for Anika for flagging that. Even I forgot as well. So maybe just do a little save as a beautiful, but honestly, we're all guilty of it. We all do it occasionally.
Oh yeah. I'll just do this whole document to the end and then wait.
It'll be saved in our minds. There we go. But no, it's best to save it actually on the computer too. Peace of mind.
Well, once I upgraded, because I used to have the MacBook Pro and it was always crashing. It would overheat. I was always getting that spinning beach ball of death.
Color wheel of death. Yeah.
Yeah. And beach so ball. all of a sudden when I switched over and I upgraded to the Mac Pro with the one that looks like a cheese grater, all those problems went away. Never happens again. So, and I was worried too, because I bought it on the 1-year financing. I was like, just in case, and I have to return this and it doesn't work, but it was like the best decision ever.
Do you know what? Saving files is one of those ones where it's funny because I spoke to a friend about it the other day, and I feel like designers have so many different ways of saving or like variants. And like I'm more of a hard drive. It's got to go cloud. It's got to save on desktop. Do you know what I mean? Like just variants of just, so that worst case, if my computer self-combusts or whatever, at least I know it's on the cloud or it's saved there. But it'd be good to know for everyone else as well. Where do you sort of save your where do you save your documents? But like how's the most useful way of saving for you? Are you a hard drive? Are you a Google Drive? Are you just on the desktop? No judgment here, of course, but where do you tend to sort of save? What's easier for you? And then
I also switched over to iCloud because I was using SugarSync, and for whatever reason, one day SugarSync had a hiccup and I lost everything. So like, I thought about crying, and then I was like, I'll just start over. So I did lose a bunch of things.
We've got quite a funny comment on it. We've got Robert who said, this is pretty rock and roll. I mean, even for me, it's a bit scary, but he likes to save at the end of a project. He said, living life on the edge, pretty much. I mean, that is, that's scary. We've got our video say, no, don't do that. So everyone's got their own different way of working, but probably just to keep things safe. And obviously you don't want to lose all your precious work. Always save now and again. And maybe make some variants as well, like version 1, version 2, just so you can always revert back to your different ones.
Doesn't it auto save for you in Photoshop?
Oh, I should know the questions is. I don't know. I always tend to if anyone in the chat know or video, if you know, if there's an auto save on Photoshop, maybe there is after a period of time. But
I thought it just kind of auto saves. Maybe it's a preference. Let's see. Nope, that's the system. Photoshop.
But that could be an update. You never know one day.
Signing. But I could have swore it was it was like a preference where you could like set it.
Auto update. Oh, that's all there. But
there. Yeah. Auto update. No, that's auto update.
No, that's something completely different. I was taking off to a wrong place.
Interface.
There. But to be honest, maybe that's probably a good thing. Actually, we kind of teaches us to actually have to save now and again, and just to
file handling.
Just to do it.
Always save background.
Rudy said it does if you have the recovery onto it.
Oh, see, automatically save recovery information every 10 minutes.
There we go.
Or you could do every 5 minutes.
I actually didn't know that. Actually, that's quite useful. Every 5 minutes, every minute if I could. But
just keep saving every second.
But that's a really good point. Actually, you really made a good point. And actually, I found this today, weirdly enough, when I was working. If your computer crashes and you're like, oh my goodness, my work, it does obviously sometimes it doesn't auto save automatically. So when you go back into your file, and to be fair, I don't know if you had that yourself, Lisa, but like that's such a good feeling when you've been working on something. If it crashes, you come back and it's just still where you left it.
Oh,
like in InDesign.
The recovery. Yeah,
it's just like, oh my god, it's like a little gem, like a little win when that happens. So yeah,
that is crashes are devastating. All right, so what I did while we were chatting is I duplicated that entire folder, top right tabs. It's now called left side tabs. I just did a Command T to grab everything, and I just dragged it over here to the left. Same thing over here on the top left tabs. Top right, I duplicated it, dragged it over here on the left. Now, the only thing that's wrong with these on the top left tabs is they're in the wrong order. So in theory, when I take this over here, oops, I didn't mean to do that. But when I take this tab here on the left and I flip it, it should be right here where this tab is. It shouldn't magically jump all the way over to the side. So we're just going to move those around. So if I go to top left tabs, and it's a little hard because these boxes are so massively huge, these clipping images. So we're just going to go over here and we're going to take this actual item. Again, I just Command T this, and then I want to move this over here to the edge. So it is mirroring what's on the right side. And I'm kidding. I actually want to move it and the clipping items, and then otherwise it won't look the same. There we go. And
do you ever find that when you drag, like it's like a weird moment where you drag something thinking it's only one, and somehow you drag 7 other elements along with it. It's like, yeah.
Didn't mean to do that. All right, so that middle one, we're just going to move that one too. So I'm going to select all these over here on the layer panel and move it over. Just going to nudge it over with my arrow keys. And then the last one, which is the home panel, same thing. I'm going to hit Command T and then drag it all the way over. So now it looks like a mirror image of the right. So in theory, you open the thing and then you turned it to the left.
I want to get painting now. I want to start doing some doodles on the on this book. If I could just have my tablet and start. That's probably for another Adobe Live session. But yeah, it's kind of good to sort of see what we're working with here.
So these are all the background images that we're going to use inside of InDesign. So we need to save them out individually. And again, like I said, you could create all of these tabs and all these boxes that you see in InDesign if you want. It's just faster for me to do it in Photoshop. And then sometimes also in InDesign, like Kieran was saying, I might want to select one thing in InDesign, but because now I have all these boxes and images, I select like 1,000 things. So for me, Photoshop makes it easier so I don't accidentally select 100 million different things. And yes, I could lock the images, but it's just easier not to. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take this eyeball tool. We're going to hide the left side, and we're going to hide the left side tabs, and we're going to hide the top left tabs. So in theory, when you open up your planner, it should look like this. So all we're going to do is say file. I'm going to do export. I'm going to say save for web legacy, just because when I do this, it automatically makes everything smaller, like in terms of kilobyte size. So I usually do JPEG as the preset. For quality, I just leave it on high. Leave this size, don't change the size. And then you can see over here, it's only going to be 106 kilobytes versus down here, this whole file is like 3.67 megabytes. So it's just really big. So we're going to hit save. It's going to give you a chance to put this into a folder. So we're just going to, because I did all of these before. So we're going to do a new folder that's called background JPEGs. And so the way I like to label these is I like to put letters on these so that then when I turn these into Masterpages, I actually know what I'm using. So we're going to leave numbers for Masterpages for the months. Like intuitively, I know 1 means January, 4 means April, 7 means July. So we can't start out with numbers. So instead, we're going to start out with letters. We're just going to call this A, home, and that's it. So now to make, like I said, the magic happen, what you're going to do is you're going to go over here and you're going to hide one of these, this home button here on the right. So the top right tab, home, we are going to hide it by hitting just the eyeball. That's it. And then we need it to show up on the left. So we're going to go over here to the top left and we're going to make it appear. Okay. Sometimes it does that when you have a folder, it makes everything appear. You can just hide it again. Oops.
We've got some actually interesting comments as well, just to kind of go back to the chat. I mean, just very quick on that topic of, it's quite a comical one, the saving, when we spoke about saving at the very end, living life on the edge. Robert said, he was only kidding. Basically, he actually had a project due, and at the end, Photoshop crashed on him just before the client meeting. I lost all my work. Sadly, I didn't save. Lesson learned. So there we go. So we might have plugged the beginning, like live life on the edge, rock and roll. But actually, we can see it was a lesson kind of learned. And always save, guys and ladies, and just for peace of mind, which we're doing now as well. We're saving it. We've got all the save one, but we're also saving two. So to do that. And actually, just one more thing on the comments. There's a really interesting point. It's actually brought up by a few people. When you duplicated and you shoved things over, we can also duplicate and reflect as well. So that way, basically 2 things will be kind of mirrored exactly opposite, rather than trying to match it by eye. So we can redo, I mean, as we go a bit further and we can try that, but that's quite a good point as well. Just that was more brought up. So yeah, good shout on that on the reflection tool. But again, these are the kind of things that, if you're just starting out, you might not know about these tools. So definitely sort of have a little play around when you're using shapes on Photoshop, and definitely we'll encourage it to go on Adobe Live and look to tutorials, and find ways of how you can do our creative challenges and ways you can kind of learn how you can use tools and shapes. So yeah, definitely get practicing, get playing, and good shout to those guys we mentioned about the reflection, because that's there's a quite useful tips to know. So yeah, let's get back into Lisa's saving mode. See, oh, you're on my birthday now. C for March, right? Is that right? C for March?
C is for the numbers are for months. C is for annual.
I got that.
For the top tabs, yeah. The top tabs are letters.
Gotcha. I knew that. I was just testing you, Lisa. I totally knew that. All right.
Oh. All right, so now we have all the tabs on the left. Okay, so now we're ready to go into, so now in theory, when you open this, you're opening it up to January. So we'll do file export, and now we're ready to use one. We're ready to move on to numbers. And then, so now we're going to have to open up these folders. So I don't need, so we can close up. I usually try to close up folders that I'm not using because it's so like
you can get it messy,
too many tabs everywhere. All right, so now we're going to hide February on the right, or January on the right, and then we're going to show just January on the left. But again, it did all of them, which is fine. We'll just unclick them. Yeah, it was funny. Yesterday, I was doing a live stream and I was copying something and I wanted it to be on another page in the same spot. And I was using my old fashioned nudging. I'm like, so I just nudge it in the right place. And some woman was like crazy, like in the comments when I finally checked, because I didn't have you. And it said, just use paste in place. And so she had like put it like 50 times. And I was like, okay, you want me to use
it is interesting because everyone's got their own like method of work. And to be fair, that's the beauty of when we do Adobe Live. Like everyone is unique in their own way and style. But obviously there's certain things that make life easier for other people. So we like to share that. And but yeah, I totally know what you mean when you got those comments like, it's so obvious, don't you know this? But actually, not everyone knows, and people are still learning. So obviously here we're all completely unbiased on that front, and this is a very good place to learn. That's the whole key for Adobe Live, to learn and to educate. So if you don't know how to flip, you can learn about it, and it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it was funny. I was like, she's clearly annoyed.
She clearly knows her stuff. It's just like, it's all good. That's quite funny.
For April. And once you start doing these sometimes, what'd you say?
Oh, so no, go for it. I was reading some comments. But
I was just sometimes when you start doing this, all of a sudden you're like, wait, what comes after May? Wait, what? It's June? Is it August? I don't know why. Sometimes when you look at like months or calendars too much, you get confused. I
feel like after, I'm in March, but I always feel like after March, my brain kind of, at the beginning of Jan, I'm like, okay, cool. I know what's ahead of me basically, right? 2 months, boom. After that, my brain is just, it's Christmas after that, right? I don't know. It just feels like I almost forget there's like other, it's, and we can't miss out those who are born in certain months. So yeah.
May.
In August, maybe.
My birthday's in June, and I was always sad because, on your birthday, when you're in like grade school, you get to bring cupcakes in or cookies, whatever, for your birthday.
We didn't have that. Okay.
What? You didn't have that?
No. I mean, we're learning like the worlds of like, in the US schools and like UK. I don't know. That sounds amazing. Like,
I can't believe you didn't have that. Well, now my story doesn't sound as whiny. So in the US, because we have summer break, I never got to bring cookies or cupcakes in.
I feel like you're still holding that against you as well. You're still holding that like dear to your heart. I can feel the
I'm totally upset. Because some years I would be like, can we just celebrate my birthday in November? And she's like, well, I don't know. That's breaking the rules. And I was like, this is unfair. I'm going to tell the principal.
That's solid. Okay. Brilliant.
All about cupcakes. Do you like, do you have any favorite? Oh, no, I was going to say, do you have any favorite desserts?
Do I have any favorite desserts? Ooh. Do you know what? It's funny actually. My fiance made an awesome tiramisu, and I'm loving tiramisu at the moment with a cup of coffee.
Nice.
Going so off piece now, but yeah, I'll bring it back to design. But yeah, tiramisu is kind of my thing. Yeah, that's kind of my go-to food pudding. Guilty pleasure as well, but it's all good. You have tiramisu whilst designing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like all design should have desserts with it. Like if we were in person. Yeah, if we were in person in a studio, I would have brought cupcakes for everybody.
I feel like if we were designing for a client as well, you could design for the client and then have like a batch of cookies or cupcakes just to try and soften the deal, just so they know. Right. It's like, yeah, these designs are great, but these cookies are even better. I don't know.
I don't know if we liked her, but we loved her desserts.
Brilliant.
December. There we go. All right. And then just in case, I don't know, in case somebody has something at the end they want to add, or like make sure to order for next year or whatever, I usually push December over to the side. I didn't used to do that. I'm just adding that now. So it's like empty. So I just call this one, it's an unlucky number 13, end of the year. Oops.
It could be someone's lucky number. You never know. Someone's born on the 13th. Could mix it up.
Possibly.
So it's usually unlucky. I know what you mean. I'm just trying to be positive. It's like...
All right. So now we don't know what people are going to do with this, because I always create these as templates. So another thing that I do, let me make this a little smaller, is I'll get rid of all of the tabs. The top, the left, the right. So then you just have some blank pages in case you want to make your own tabs or you want to do something else. So I will just do file export. And
quick question,
we'll
Lisa. I
D?
was going to say, so with the designs as well on your website, so obviously you've handmade all your designs as well yourself, on using Photoshop. Do you ever find like you might get some sort of customers who want more something bespoke or what's not on your site, and then you have to kind of recreate something a bit out of the ordinary, or is it usually kind of they know what they want, it's straightforward?
Because I don't do design work. I'm very much like it's my way or the highway. So I'm not that kind of a designer. So I found it easier. Like I definitely take requests. And like, if I have enough requests for something, like the biggest request I have right now is everyone wants a self-confidence for women planner. And so I'll make that. But otherwise, bespoke one-on-one, I'm just not built for that. And I think that's because like growing up, I always had like a problem with authority. So I'm not good at like taking orders. Okay. So that's kind of my philosophy. But people email me all the time asking me to do one-on-one custom work for them. So I actually have an autoresponder in my email if you ever try to respond to me, and it will just say, I don't do that. But here are 2 other people that do. And honestly, I think, if you're just doing a one-off planner, it's totally worth it to hire someone. But usually the really good designers, I know my friend Chelsea, she'll charge starting at around $1,200 for a simple planner, $4,000 for a really nice one. Same thing with some of the other ones I put down as references. They all start at around $1,500 or $1,600. So I think it would behoove you, if you want to make a planner business, to learn how to make these yourself. But if not, then definitely just outsource it if you're going to do a one-off. Right?
I get that. Okay, cool. That's good to know. I guess for those of you who's on, just if you're quite curious about planning, so there we go. There's some little fun tips there of how to work it. And actually, when you mentioned it's my way or the highway kind of design, that's interesting because obviously I'm a freelancer, and you can be a bit flexible, obviously with certain clients, but usually you kind of feel that they have, they've seen your website, they know what you're about. So in a way, it sort of sets a tone in the sense that they kind of maybe know what to expect. So from my side, it's bit difficult to be my way or the highway, but I think that before they come to me, they need to kind of have an idea of what they're going to be getting. So it's a sense of just trust the person and doing a good job at it. And we've had these a few talks and designs with Adobe Live where we talk about like client trust relationship, and it can be difficult sometimes, but setting that bar, isn't it?
I feel like that's a whole different art, right? Like when I first started out, I did client work, and I had some clients where I'd turn in stuff where I was like, wow, they're going to hate this. And they'd write me back and they'd be like, oh my God, I love it. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Right. And I'm like, wow, That's crazy, right? And they're like, can I pay you extra as a bonus? And I was like, sure. And then there's other people where I'm like, this is the greatest accomplishment and piece of work I've ever done. And they write me back and they're like, wow, this is awful. I want a refund. And I'm like, oh, okay.
The yin and the yang, right? It's just like,
yeah. And they're like, this
Yeah.
looks nothing like your website. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is one of the exact images from my website. Like, so again, like, I feel like that never happens to you, like where you're surprised by client responses.
Do you know what it is? I think I officially went freelance in January, and it's one of the ones where the more jobs you do, the better you get in terms of not just, how you skill yourself as a designer, but about yourself, what you're capable of doing. And I always find like now with clients, it's a learning curve, especially when they've just reached out to you. You never really know the dynamics. Sometimes, actually, we had this conversation with Izzy, one of our Adobe Lives, about 2 weeks ago, and we spoke about that client relationship and almost like testing the waters out to see what they're going to do and how they react to it and how they respond. And when you said about the idea of when you do a design they love it, it's the best feeling in the world, right? But then when you do something that you're not they're not too fond of, it's how do you then take on board that feedback? With me personally, I always try and tell myself, right, if the feedback's not what I thought it'd be, okay, how can we kind of get to that solution? Because at the end of the day, both parties want to get to the best possible deliverable, right? So trying to take it too to heart. It's a hard thing, isn't it, as a designer? Because you design it and you're like, I put effort and love into this. Why do you hate it? But it's got to be something that is like, end of the day, like, it's obviously a business, but you've also got to, do your best to try and get to that end result. And then that client relationship is important. You want to have a good relationship as well at that. So
it's also the way people describe things too. So like I was at the doctor the other day because I pulled my hamstring and he's like, well, what kind of pain is it? And I'm like, I don't know. It's annoying. Just fix it. He's like, yeah, but is it a pulling kind of pain? Is it a sharp pain? Is it a burning pain? And I'm like, I don't know. It's just pain, right? So whereas he like probably has very descriptive things that will help him diagnose and like give a solution. So sometimes when you're asking for feedback, you're like, what do you not like? And they're like, I don't know. It's too pink, but that's not really the problem. They're just like, something
I don't
else.
like it, but yeah. We've got some really good questions actually. And actually a lovely comment on the chat. We've got Biola who said, so basically she's loving what you're doing. She's amazing. And she's actually making her own self-confidence for women journals, which is really cool. So yeah, definitely hook up with Lisa on the website, and then hopefully, never know, a collaboration could come to fruition.
Yeah.
So that'd be quite cool.
So I guess I do kind of let people input. So when I do, I haven't done it for a while, but when I was doing new planner templates every month, I would pick like 5 or 6 ones that were most popular that were coming into my inbox. And then I'd let people vote. And then I would create whatever got the most votes. And so for whatever reason, the self-confidence planner had like millions of votes. But, in some years past too, though, I don't know that people really know what they want. I think sometimes they just like voting. Like everyone wanted this Christianity planner, right? A divinity planner. Worst sales I've ever had. So I made the thing that was at the bottom of the list, which is the wellness planner. That has sold more planners than like anything else.
I bet.
So it's hard to tell. Like sometimes people just don't know what they want.
I don't know. And sometimes that is okay. I guess it's the idea of like just trying different things out, and then as long as it's not ridiculously too long, but enough that you're in a good space and an experiment as well. That's good. We've actually got a really good question as well from Cynthia, and it's kind of going back to the images that you use. Obviously, we're using Adobe Stock here, but she said when you're using images, do you have to get special license to have them printed on demand for your Etsy shops, or do you use your own photographs?
That's a great question. So if I was to, I've actually written to Adobe before and asked this because I used to make covers too for romance writers, right? To make some extra money. So you can definitely have those printed and made as long as it's not the original image, right? So if I go to Adobe Stock, do I still have it open? Yeah. And let's say I just do, so for like, I had like a romance couple. Let's hope only PG things show up. Yeah. So, so a romance couple. So like, let's say we really like this picture, right? If I just print this picture and I resell it, then I can't do that because that's obviously like the original art. But if I stick a bunch of words on here, I change it around, I add some rain in the background, I add a cute little dog in the corner, right? Then it's not the original work. I've altered it in some way so that you can print and sell, if that makes sense, because it's not the original.
I think as well, like the thing about, it's always I don't want to say gray area, but if you're ever unsure about when you get an image or you download it, and I'm guilty of it as well, when you have to make sure, is just really check the license. And I guess the reports that come with it, because for example, a good example with Behance, we have loads of creatives who have work and you can use mockups, but they'll have a disclaimer kind of stating what you can and cannot do. So it's one of those ones where it might always seem like, oh, it's okay to kind of do it, but then just to be on the safe side, it always gets us to double check. This is more for those in the chat as well, for, you know, if you're never too sure if that's the right image you could use, or can you alter it for your business, you know. And usually if you can't find information, just maybe email the person directly and just find out, and that way probably saves you some lawsuits or whatever down the line. But at least that way as well, you feel like you're crediting the person, because that's also one thing I've always found, like designers, like if you're creating a mock-up or photography, it's nice to credit the person because they spent time taking the photograph, creating it, so you kind of want to give back, right? And and credit, because it's a nice thing to do, but it's also the right thing to do as well.
Yeah.
So
you can also too, you know, you can have custom things photographed for you nowadays that are way less expensive than they used to be, right? Like, so a custom romance cover used to cost, like, let's say $900 for the couple to sign off on all the rights, right? But nowadays there are so many stock photos out there and so many more people willing to like pose for, like, it's more normal, I guess I should say, versus like everyone's taking selfies all the time, right? So people are more used to being in front of camera. It's not a big deal. So it's, I don't want to say cheaper, but it's more affordable now to get original artwork in case you are super worried about planning. But yeah, just like Kieran said, you could email them. And I also feel like it's kind of a gut feel. Like if I've taken an image and I really haven't altered it a lot, and it's like the bulk of what I'm selling, then I kind of feel like I'm stealing. I don't know. Like I kind of feel like maybe I shouldn't be doing that, or I should buy, I don't know. Sometimes you can buy the extended license. So that's another thing too.
Definitely. I mean, like I said, like, yeah, if you don't know, always ask, right? Just so that it just saves everything. But yeah, that was a really good question, Cynthia, on that image run. And again, for those of you obviously maybe just joined in, and you know, we're in that process now, obviously still designing our planner with Lisa, but definitely put your comments in there, because that was a really good question on the image front. And if you're curious about Lisa's process, you know, her business, how she operates, you know, put those lovely comments in the chat, and I'll share them directly with Lisa whilst we keep designing.
So let's talk about spirals next. So the biggest part on these planners is trying to make them look real. So you need to put a faux like coil inside of there, depending on what kind of binder you're going after. Now, this is one that I've purchased off of Etsy. I really like hers. I don't know. Do you want me to shoot over the URL to you, Kieran?
If you where you
or just
so
tell people to search. You can search.
We can get. I think we'll get that in the on the chat. That works. If you type in the wire coil, I can't even pronounce words. Wire coil binder spine. You can probably get that on Etsy quite easily. But we'll get that on the chat. Okay. But yeah, let's keep going.
So if you look inside of Etsy for any of these wire coils, like faux coils, you can find there's a ton of different styles. But I was holding this up too, because if you want, and you're worried, just like Kieran said, like about, using someone's artwork or not having permissions, you can just take a coil and take a picture yourself. So the only thing you have to do is, obviously this is a white coil, so you'd want to put it against a black background or a really dark background. So then it'll be easier to make transparent inside of Photoshop. And if you don't know how to make something transparent in Photoshop, I feel like the number one Fiverr gig right now is make something transparent for $5. So it's super easy. Again, you can do different colors. Just remember, if you have a pink coil, make sure it's against something that contrasts with it really well, so that it's easier to make into a transparent image. So that's another way you can get it if you like those. I know there are tutorials out there on how to draw the coils as well. And I 100% am unable to draw anything, like even stick figures look strange, right? So, if you're like me, just buy it. Yeah. No but if you search really inside of here, faux coils, you're going to see a lot of things, because so many people are making digital planners. You're going to see, and now that I said that, of course, nothing came up, digital faux coils. There we go. So now you're going to see these are spirals. These are those ones that people probably drew. These are the ones that I was looking at. So, and they come in different colors as well. So
when you mentioned just briefly, when you mentioned about the design, because obviously again, like Illustrator, that's probably quite a good tool. If you, again, for those of you watching and be curious about how you would create your own, like maybe that would be quite a good starting point in terms of Illustrator and playing around with shapes. And again, we've got so many creative challenges on Adobe Live that will cover on shapes and how you manipulate and move things around. So if you're curious about making maybe your own binding or coil, give that a go, maybe Illustrator, or you obviously do what Lisa's doing. You can obviously source your own on Etsy or Adobe Stock, because I'm sure on Adobe Stock there's some on there as well. So yeah, all good.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's go and see digital faux coils, if I can spell it right.
I love when that happens. It's like, maybe just typing digital coil or just coil. Maybe it's one of those ones where you have to sort of limit, narrow down the search. One that will come up with like binding.
Oh yeah, there's some coils over here. Yeah. Maybe if I do illustrations.
Yeah, there we go.
No, that's not right.
All vectors, maybe. I mean, actually, that's probably perhaps. But again, actually, we kind of spoke about the idea. Even that top left one, that's probably a good example of like if you was to design your own. That's the kind of things, again, you would learn on like Adobe Live tutorials of how you would create these ones. So yeah, again, a lot of these things are kind of made for you, but if you're interested in that process, it's always nice to try and give it a go yourself and play around. There's some crazy ones on there.
Yeah.
like a slinky. I remember that as a child.
Yeah. And I always say too, just take any coil that you like. If you have a notebook at home, like there's tons of different kinds of bindings, just rip it out. Especially because, I mean, we're already into August. It's probably the end of the year anyway. And just take a picture of it, right? And that's how you can get the coil that you want that's then maybe possibly unique to what everybody else has. So another thing too, before we leave Photoshop, save it. I'm going to just show you one of the coils that I purchased. And we're going to change the color. So this is one of the coils that I purchased. So sometimes what I do too is, let me just make this white. It's kind of hard. This is on a transparent background, but sometimes it's just kind of hard to see on a transparent background. So I'll just add a layer in here of white.
Did you zoom in a layer, just a little bit? It looks, from my advice, like a weird caterpillar just doing a crazy.
Can you see it now?
There we go. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good. All good.
So, maybe we're not making a purple planner, right? So we probably don't want a purple coil, right? So even if you have a purple coil, you can change it down here. Again, this is kind of my hack. I just use Hue Saturation. And then I just go ahead and I just change it around to whatever color I need it to be, whether it's green, it's yellow, it's pink. We want a blue coil. So we're going to change ours to a blue coil.
I was so digging that green, like sort of strobe lights. Getting off piece there. I mean, obviously this is yours. You do obviously the color, but I was like, I would buy that coil happily. Yeah.
So this is the coil that we want. So we're going to get rid of that color fill. And then all you have to do is take it and then just export it for web again. And this time we're just going to say PNG. And then you can save this coil out. I've already saved it out, so we don't need to do that. And that will be your blue coil that we can use on the planner later on. All right, so let's go into Adobe InDesign. And I will pull this all the way down. There we go. All right, so here we're going to say create new. And so inside of here, we're going to do the exact same sizes, which I wrote down because I can never remember these numbers. And we're going to make sure these are pixels. So another thing too, let me close this really quick. When you open up InDesign, go over here to preferences. And let's go into, it doesn't matter which one of these, honestly, that you open, you'll get the whole menu again. So don't be like, that was my only chance to open that one menu. I used to do that. But for, I think it's interface, is it general? Oh, units and increments. Make sure that you have pixels because this is a digital planner. So we only need pixels. Like I always say, I'm not even sure. I think a pica is like something in the metric system. millimeters. I don't even understand right. So like, because this is digital, we'll stick to pixels. But like Kieran was saying, if you're doing print, then you might want to switch this out. Another thing you want to do too is probably on mine, it's not defaulted for absolute, but if you go over here to the general tab and you go to section numbering, usually absolute numbering is your default. And absolute numbering just means that it will number things logically, like 2 will come after 1. 3 will come after 2, 4 will come after 3, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We don't want that. We don't want any logical numbering. Instead, we want what's called section numbering. And section numbering is what's going to allow you to create that magic behind the scenes of making sure that when I click January, it jumps to January. You cannot do that with absolute numbering. So make sure you change both of those things. So the first one was units and increments. You want to change these to pixels. And in general, under page numbering, you can ignore all of this. Just make sure it says section numbering, not absolute numbering, or I promise it will not work. So that's what you want to do first in preferences. All right. So now let's go back over here to new. You're going to do new document. You're going to do those funky numbers again. So first you're going to make sure it is landscape, because that's what we created before in Photoshop. So it's 1336 by 960. So you probably want to write those down. That's pretty universal. Don't worry if someone has, like, I get this question a lot. Someone has an 11-inch tablet versus the 13-inch Pro, or one of those smaller, like student tablets. It doesn't matter. It will, dimension wise, it will stretch out to be whatever this is. All right. So we don't even care about pages. We definitely do not want facing pages. So uncheck that. Down over here, I mean, margins, you could have margins if you want. I kind of feel like they don't really matter because it's a digital planner. So again, you're not printing this or anything else, but if you like having margins because you're used to seeing that, you can leave that as well. Definitely bleed and slug, just zero all those out, because you don't need those at all.
I almost felt like blasphemy when you said margins don't, because obviously with editorial designers, like, you can't say that, that's crazy. Yeah, no. But yeah, like you said, it depends on what you're working with, and obviously if you're doing certain things that require that, then cool. But obviously in this case, but not, there's no need for margins, but margins matter. It's all good.
Yeah, you'll notice when you see professionals, they'll just have like a baseline and they'll have their set margins and gutters and everything else. So yeah, but you're rolling with me today.
And just a flag as well, just before, I feel like it might come up a comment with the file name as well, just to save your
did I save it? I could do a save as if people are nervous. So it gets us in that right mentality of naming our files, but yeah. Is this like a horror movie where you're like, she hasn't hit save?
But you know what's funny? It's like that's a weird, like, it's like a designer's. Everyone's got different kind of like levels of, like, not only OCD, but just, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like, if you've been doing it for many, many years, or you're just starting out, you have your different ways of how you would consider to be neat and tidy. But yeah, my brain's like, she's got to save her file names and save just for sanity. And we touched on it as well. But yeah, it's all good.
But yeah, I could work in this forever and just never, ever save. I guess because I'm never worried, because I'm like, I can just recreate it. All right. So over
free
here.
Spirit. I like your vibe of free spirit.
So again, if you don't see what I see, it's because over here for window, for workspace, I always use Essentials Classic. Now the new Essentials, what they're trying to do is they're trying to save you workspace, so you have more real estate to look at. But honestly, because I don't know, because I'm self-taught, or maybe because I'm just used to visually seeing everything, I need the classic one to like kind of know where things are. So that's just kind of, and again, it's a personal preference on what you like or don't like. Over here, I don't know if this is the right term. I just call these kind of flyout menus. We're going to use pages a lot. Do you call them something else?
Panels, I guess I'll just call them. I mean, again, if I'm saying it wrong, but like, I just call them like design panels. So it's just like,
see, when you're self-taught, you just make up words. This is a classic thingy.
Fantabby-dobby. Sorry. They're magical tabs. I love it.
Right. So if you don't see this on the right, just make sure you go to window and make sure that page is selected, and then you can see this. So it's hard to see, but there's this imaginary line here. So when you put your mouse over it, you'll see these double arrows, and you can make this bigger or smaller depending on what you need. So right now we actually need to use Masterpages a lot. So we're going to make this really big here on the top, we can make this panel a little longer. So these are master pages on the top. These are your regular pages on the bottom. So I always tell people, if you've never used Adobe InDesign, think of master pages as like when you use Microsoft Word, these are like headers and footers, right? They'll like show up on each page in theory that you apply it to. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a master page for each of those items that we had over here that we just created inside of, whoops, just kidding, over here that we just created inside of Photoshop. We're going to stick over here. And you might know, Kieran, a shortcut for this. I'll show you what I do when I want to create these. But over here, I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to rename this before I get confused. And if you just right click on that master page and drop down to master options, then you can rename it. So remember how I said we had A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, 4 as those prefixes. We're going to make sure that those match up over here. So if I look over here at this first file for background JPEGs, then I know that A is home. So over here, I'm going to rename this home. And I'm going to say, okay. So in order to populate this with the home menu, all I'm going to do is drag and drop it. So I'm going to drag and drop this. So I have a loaded cursor. I usually just double click it up here in the top left corner. And like I said, magically, it just fills up the page, right? Because this is 1336 by 960. And so is the image that we made. If it wasn't, you might have to stretch it out a little bit, but because it's not, then we can just keep going on. So again, I need another master page. So here at the bottom right, if I just create new page, depending on which panel I'm in, it'll create a new page there. So I know that actually, I don't know. Let me double check. The next one is called goals. So over here, I'm going to right click, master options, B, and goals.
Just a quick one on the chat. Biola's mentioned a very good point. Again, that's what we're using now. Masterpages, it will save you so much time, and I couldn't agree more. Right? It's just once you realize how useful Masterpages is, like, yeah, those long days of like dragging and dropping single pages, every single one, especially like headings or footnotes. It's a pain to have to do, say, 200 or however big your document is. So yeah, Masterpages are definitely our friends in Adobe.
Yes.
So yeah, if you're not sure about, what Masterpages are, by all means, have a little tutorial on some of our creative clouds, on some of our creative challenges, and you can sort of see that as well. But they're just basically a page which allows you to kind of create an asset on there, and then it will kind of populate that across all of your documents. So you have to do it every single time. It's already on your master page. So yeah, little fun tip for you.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of Adobe InDesign is that it has master pages. So, I mean, that's kind of like the magic.
It's the magic. That is a word of the day. I love that.
Wait, pages.
And just as a little heads up, so we're about, I think, roughly 10 minutes, but I mean, we've got some time still left. Excuse me. But what we'll start to do is, as well, we'll get to that point where we can start talking about what we've kind of worked on today. Just so we can kind of give everyone a bit of a recap in the next sort of, say, 5 minutes or so, just so we have an idea of, what we're at and obviously what we're doing tomorrow. And just a sort of question, sort of putting out there for our audience, which really just done as well. If you've got any last minute questions that you'd love to know about Lisa and her process, please put it in the chat and I will share it directly with Lisa. We'll be here tomorrow as well. So hopefully you can join us and we can get a bit more. But yeah, just we're in the thick of the masters right now. So yeah, let's keep going.
Let me just load this last one and then we can wrap up because the other things will take more time. We'll do all the section numbering tomorrow.
Do you ever find like it's quite cool? Because obviously you jumped in from Photoshop to InDesign. Like we've had a few Adobe Lives about this before, but it's so cool how each program is quite intuitive, but they work in collab depending on what the program is. So like, and again, for those who are quite new about design progresses, like you'll start to realize with all these individual programs, they're amazing in their own, but they can definitely work in sync. So that's quite nice how you've kind of shown Photoshop and then the InDesign as well, which is great.
All right. So that's kind of a wrap for today. You'll see here that this page down here looks exactly like a home. And that's because the A master page is applied. So if you ever just kind of hover over a page, you can see it says a home applied in case you're wondering what's applied. But if I change this and I just put annual down here, then C will be what shows up over here, or it should be. There we go.
Mert just made a good point actually on. So with your, and there's a question that will help. How do you link the pages to auto flip?
We're going to have to do that tomorrow because that's a really long lesson.
That's a good incentive to come back tomorrow then to find out more about how we do it. But that's a good question. But I guess we got to say about sort of 5 more minutes into it. With what you're doing now, was there any more sort of stuff you need to do on Photoshop that we're going to bring in, or is that all of your Photoshop bits?
I think that's all we need to do on Photoshop, unless of course you get into this and you're like, you know what, I don't want 3 tabs on the top here, I want 4 tabs. Then you would go back into Photoshop and redo that.
Do you ever find like it's quite, I always sometimes do this with other jobs. If I'm working on like, say, a Photoshop and I've exported it as JPEG, all good, put it in my InDesign. But if I want to know, I want to keep going back and forth into Photoshop, I'll just save it as like a PSD. And then if you actually bring it in as a PSD, there's an option to edit with, and then you can kind of go straight back into your file. And then this is the magic part now. I want to use your words, magic. But when you do your little Photoshop bits and bobs, if you press save, it instantly updates it in your InDesign. So you don't have to actually kind of give drag and drop. But I mean, we can do a bit more of that bit for tomorrow as well. But yeah, we've got sort of 5 more minutes, so we can still maybe go a bit more into this. Or we'll talk about a bit more what you're working on tomorrow. That would be good to know what you'd be working on tomorrow.
That's a good point that you have that. The only reason I haven't done that before is because my other computer was like, when I was learning, was not as powerful and strong as this one. And so the more like stuff I put into InDesign, the more I got that beach ball of death. And so, because my computer just wasn't strong enough to process it, if that makes sense. And so I was like, let me just save this out to 1 kilobyte. And then I will put it into InDesign.
It makes it safe. It's funny because like I was talking to someone else. I think it might be Izzy actually for last time on Adobe Live, and we were saying when you've got programs like, for example, Premiere Pro, or you've got things rendering like video files. I mean, if you think Photoshop is crazy, but like those files when they're so big, like full length footage, that is. It's like, that's like, would you call it the beach ball of death? I've never heard it before.
The beach ball of death. Yeah, you didn't.
The color wheel of death. Is it color wheel? Yeah, color wheel of death. That's
beach balls sounds happier, right? Like...
It does. The death part, definitely has very morbid. But yeah, that's good to know. And I guess for tomorrow, what would you say we'll be working on? Like, again, we'll be we'll touch on a bit more on what we did today. But just so people have an idea of what you're working on for tomorrow. Sure.
So it's a good question. So tomorrow we will definitely make sure to probably just stay 100% inside of InDesign, because we're kind of done with photo. Like I said, you only have to go back if you made a mistake, which I do a lot, but I don't think I did today. So over here, we're going to fill up the rest of these master sheets. And then I'm going to show you how to use section numbering, which is what I made you change in the preferences. So we'll probably just recap again on that tomorrow in case someone's new. And then I'll show you how to make the magic. So what everyone wants to know is when I use my iPad, my Apple Pencil, and I click around, like, how do I make it so it magically goes to March and April and June? And I will show you all of that first thing tomorrow. And then we'll actually start creating the planner. We'll create January and February and March and everything else, the guts inside of it, because otherwise people will go to a blank page.
Nice. And I realized, so like, you use for your equipment, do you use a tablet as well then? Is that one of your go-to?
Yeah, I mean, I use, if I'm being totally honest, my iPad, so I have it in the smart folder, the keyboard or whatever, but really if you're using it with an Apple Pencil, you can't use it with that. You should really use the older, which it's funny because I don't even know, I think they still sell them, but nobody wants them anymore because they want the keyboards. You need the older folio that just folds up like a little triangle. Nice. And see, mine's still even in the box. I don't use it as much, but I was going to say, honestly, I mostly just use my iPad for watching Netflix.
No judgment at all. Do you know what? I do love sort of seeing how other creators like the equipment that they use and, the different things they've got going on. But yeah, it's cool. And again, for those of you, obviously, massive thank you for joining in today, because it's been great. And just to sort of flag as well, we're back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific for Lisa's part 2. So definitely join. And again, we'll see a bit more into, like you said, a bit more InDesign, right? And seeing how we work into that. So yeah, hopefully you can join. Just to say, please stay tuned because we've got XD Daily Creative Challenge replays coming up, followed by Draw Along with Carl T. Webster. So Lisa, yeah, it's been your first part 1 of Adobe. So how have you found it?
Yeah, this went by way faster than I thought it would.
All good. I was gonna say, yeah, no, it's been great. And again, a massive thank you to everyone in the chat who's joined as well. So it's been great and to see. So yeah, hopefully join us tomorrow. And obviously a big thank you as well, of course, to our amazing Adobe team behind the scenes. So yeah, a massive thank you. And Lisa, I'll see you tomorrow. Great.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Bye,
See you. Bye.